Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're going to be making butter cookies, also known as sugar cookies, but whatever you call them, they're the absolute world's best holiday cookie. And for years I tried different recipes for a good cookie dough that I could roll out and cut into shapes and decorate, because I did have 4 kids, and the decorated cookies are part of what make holidays special. Whether you're making them for Christmas or Easter or some other special occasion, decorated cookies really add a special touch to your celebration. And these are the absolute best. Out of dozens and dozens of recipes I've tried, this is the one. And I have modified this recipe just a little bit over the years. Like I add more baking soda than the original recipe called for. I use cream in it instead of buttermilk. The original recipe called for buttermilk, but I like the cream better. But you can use, if you don't have cream, you could go ahead and use milk or evaporated milk or anything like that, because I've also used milk and evaporated milk in this recipe. But let's get on with the recipe. You need 1.5 cups of sugar and 1.5 cups of butter. That's why they're known by both names, I would assume. You need 1/2 cup of cream, and this is heavy cream. You need 2 teaspoons of baking soda and 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'll go ahead and dump that in there. And you need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You do want to make sure that your baking soda is fresh, and I said that in another cookie video that you wanted to make sure your baking soda was really fresh, or your cookies won't come out. You also need 2 eggs, and you need some vanilla, and I do always use real vanilla extract in this, at least 1 teaspoon. You can add a little more if you like. But we're going to start by creaming our butter and our sugar together in the mixer. And you can certainly mix these by hand. I have done it, but it is much easier with a mixer. You also want to make sure you sit this butter out of the refrigerator several hours before you mix these cookies. Even overnight, if you can, if you remember it the night before you're going to mix cookies up, set the butter out of the refrigerator. And I always mix up plenty of these at Christmas time, enough so that I have dough in my refrigerator from about 2 weeks before Christmas until New Year's. And any of them that I have left on New Year's, I take that dough and roll it out and use my little bell cookie cutter and make bells on New Year's Eve to ring in the new year. Now we're going to add our eggs. And go ahead and add the milk or your cream, whatever you're using. I said the cream does work best, but if you don't have cream, you can still make the cookies. And I'm going to go ahead and add my vanilla. I like to put at least 2 teaspoons, but you definitely want to put at least 1 teaspoon, because this is a lot of cookie dough. It's 4 cups of flour. You got to flavor it with something. Before I add my flour, I want to scrape the sides of the bowl real good. And I'll have to scrape my bowl again after I start mixing here, but just get all this butter and sugar off the edges and out of the bottom. I did notice with a stand mixer that sometimes when you cream butter and sugar together, you have sugar that sticks in the bottom underneath the butter, and it doesn't get mixed in even after you've added your flour and stuff. So you do want to make sure you scrape the bowl good if you're using a stand mixer. You don't really have to worry about this with a hand mixer. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add all this flour in at one time because I'm using a stand mixer. If you were doing this with a hand mixer or by hand, you would not want to add it all at one time. You would want to add about half of it and mix that, and then add the other half. But you want to start this on low so it doesn't sling it everywhere. And this is what your dough looks like when it's mixed. That's all mixed really good. I'm just going to turn my mixer off now, and then I'm going to put this in a bag and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to bake it. Now, you do have to refrigerate this dough before you roll it out. You want to put it in the refrigerator for at least an hour, but you can store it in your refrigerator for up to 3 weeks, because I make the dough, my dough, about 2 weeks before Christmas, and I'll mix up a couple of batches of this because I'll use quite a few cookies between now and Christmas. And then, like I said, anything that's left over, I use it on New Year's Eve. And that gives me about 3 weeks worth of dough, and I don't have to worry about making this mess in the kitchen as it gets closer to Christmas mixing up cookie dough. I've already got it in the refrigerator. And I said in a chocolate chip video that I always use a bag to put it in, because as it gets closer to Christmas, my refrigerator gets absolutely full because I've got cookie dough and baking supplies and whatever kind of dinner we're having, and you know, try to keep some cheese and some summer sausage and stuff like that for when people drop by. And of course you have to have room for drinks, so the bag works out really good. It doesn't take up much room, and then as I use it, the bag gets smaller. I'm just going to dump this in the bag, and then we'll be back in an hour or so when the dough is good and cold, and then we'll roll it out and bake some and decorate a few. My cookie dough has been in the refrigerator for several hours now, chilling, and it's nice and firm. So all I'm going to do is sprinkle a little flour out here. Don't need too much. If you were to try to roll this out without chilling it first, you would probably have to use a couple of cups of flour before it stopped being sticky, and then your cookies wouldn't be good. But all I'm going to do is cut a chunk of this off, and you don't want to roll out more than what you're going to bake at one time, because if it sits out, it will get soft, warm up and get soft, and then you won't be able to roll it again. It'll be super sticky. And there's enough. And I'm going to roll this out to about 1/4 inch thick, maybe not quite that much. And you don't really need any expensive cookie cutters. I do have some metal ones here. I've had these for a couple of years, but for years and years and years, I just used a set of those little dollar plastic ones. And they finally broke, and one of the kids bought me those one year after Christmas. But you can see I have very little flour on my hands, and this dough is not sticking to my hands real bad because I did chill it and let it get firm. Before we get any farther, let's turn our oven on and let it preheat. And I'm just going to preheat my oven to 350. That's another modification that I made on the original recipe. The original recipe said to cook them at 450, I think. And if you cook these at 450, they will burn. I mean, they'll burn bad way before they get done. This makes a really thick, soft cookie. And how many you get out of a batch, of course, will depend on the size of the cookie cutter that you use and how thick you roll out your dough. And that's about right there. You do want to put a little flour on your cookie cutters. And all that extra that's around the edge, we're going to save that, and we'll make cookies out of that too. If you're making a whole bunch of these and you want all the different shapes like I have here, you can usually get more on a pan if you bake like a whole pan of Christmas trees or a whole pan of stockings or whatever. But I want to decorate a few of these for the video, and I want to make all different shapes. So I'm not going to be able to get a whole lot on my pan. I also want to warn you, cookie cutters like this star that have all these little points on it, they tend to stick to your cookies, and a lot of times they tear. So I don't always use this one. And I do have a little bell somewhere. I don't know where it is. But like I said, all of my leftover cookie dough that I have every year after Christmas, I bake it on New Year's Eve, and I use the bell cookie cutter. But I usually make some bells for Christmas too. Okay, that'll give us some to decorate. We'll just let that oven finish preheating. You need to kind of just keep an eye on these. You're going to bake them anywhere from 12 to 14 minutes. It depends on how thick you've made them. It depends on the humidity, you know, how wet the cookie dough is. A lot of different things. But after about 12 minutes or so, you want to really start keeping an eye on them. And if you're baking several pans, once you bake that first pan full, you'll know how long you have to bake them. But this cookie dough here, I'm just going to put it back in my bag and put it in the refrigerator till I get ready to make more cookies. The oven's preheated, so I'm going to stick these in here now and turn my timer on. And I'm going to set it for 12 minutes and then check on them. Okay, while the cookies are baking, I'm going to show you how easy it is to decorate these, or what you need to decorate them. You need the buttercream frosting and some food color, and you need some baggies, just regular sandwich baggies. You don't have to have any kind of special tips or anything like that. And you don't even really have to have these, but if you want to fancy the cookies up, not just make green Christmas trees and red stockings and things like that, you can decorate them a little bit with this. And all you do is take a pair of kitchen scissors or something and cut the corner off of your bag. And if you're keeping these in your refrigerator like I do through Christmas, you can put your buttercream frosting in these baggies and then just put all of the baggies down inside of another one, and that'll keep them fresh, and you can pull them out and decorate cookies, you know, as you make them. This is really fun to do with kids too. On Christmas Eve, we would always decorate cookies for Santa Claus and leave them out. You have to watch, kids, though, or you'll end up with a whole batch of buttercream frosting on one cookie. And they can get that much frosting on one cookie somehow. I want a little bit of white to decorate with, so I'm just going to put a little bit of white in my baggie. And make sure when you put your frosting in your baggie, you put it on the corner, or down in the corner of the baggie where you cut your hole, not the other side. Once you put your frosting in your baggie, you just twist the baggie up, and then you have like a little miniature pastry tube that you can squirt the frosting out of. And if you've had this in the refrigerator like I did for a while, the stuff you put in your baggies that you're going to decorate with, you might have to kind of squeeze it and warm it up just a little bit. That makes it flow a little easier. But we're going to color some of this. And it just, for this much, it'll literally just take a couple of drops. I'm going to do some yellow for the stars. And then I'll use a little bit of it to decorate the Christmas tree too, about 3 drops. And I'm going to do some green, of course, for the Christmas trees. And we'll do some red and some white for the stockings and the candy canes. Alright, and that's our red for, and it's, I mean, it's literally just that easy, a few drops of food color, and you stir it up. Now, you don't want to get carried away with your food coloring, because food coloring does taste kind of bitter. And if you put too much in it, you can actually taste it in your cookies, and that's not good. So just, you know, a few drops. This frosting is really cold. If I had let it sit out of the refrigerator for a few minutes before I did this, it would have been a whole lot easier to mix it. Okay, I'm going to put just a little bit of my colored frosting in my baggies so that I've got it to decorate and put little designs on my cookies. Okay, it's been exactly 12 minutes. It may take a little longer in your oven or a little less time. So keep an eye on them because you don't want to burn them. But what you're looking for is just a little bit of brown around the edges, and you want to make sure the top of the cookie is dry. If it still looks wet, your cookie will fall and it'll get really flat after you take it out of the oven. But this does make a really thick, really soft cookie. And you can, if you want to, you can sprinkle the colored sugar on this before you bake it. And you can just have, you know, green Christmas trees and red stockings and stuff like that. But my family really prefers the frosted cookie. In fact, Brett said it's just not Christmas until you have frosted sugar cookies. So that's how I make them, is I frost them with the buttercream frosting. And we are going to have to let these cool just a minute before we put the frosting on. But I want to show you how easy it is to decorate them. And these make a great addition if you're giving away fudge and homemade candy and stuff. Put 2 or 3 of these on the platter or in the box with your candy that you're giving away. And you can even personalize them with people's names. If you're doing like a more formal kind of a dinner, you can use like the stockings and stuff and put people's names on them and use them as a place marker at the table. And I just use a butter knife to frost them. And if I'm going to decorate them, like I said, I use my little baggies. And you don't have to be real precise with it either. My stockings, I always do them in half red, and then I do the top part white. And like I said, you don't need to be real precise with it. You can be a little messy. People get the idea. And my candy canes, I stripe those with red and white. And it's really not hard to do with just the butter knife. You could use, if you had a regular pastry bag that you could get a nice wide stripe out of, you could use that. You wouldn't really want to use the little sandwich bags because they're going to put out a very small amount of frosting, and it would take forever to stripe it. It would look like one of those pin-striped candy canes or something when you got done. And honestly, these are so good that you really wouldn't even have to color the frosting, and nobody would care, but it just adds a lot to Christmas. You can see there how pretty these look just like this, just using the butter knife and spreading the frosting on them. And that's certainly decorated enough. But if you're doing them for, you know, to give them away and you want to personalize them, or if you want to really get creative with the kids, or like I said, you want to do them and use them like as place cards at dinner or something for Christmas dinner, that's when you need the little baggies with the frosting in them, just to do something a little more. But if I'm making up a whole bunch and I'm filling up the cookie jar because everybody's coming over and they're just going to be snacking, this is where I leave it right here, because they're very Christmassy and they're very pretty, and there just is no need really to do anything else. But if you want to do a little more, you can take some white and kind of stripe your Christmas trees so it looks like snow or popcorn strings or whatever on it. And then you can take your red and add some little lights or Christmas balls or, you know, whatever. It just adds some color to it and makes it more festive and even prettier. And take the yellow, and kids really like doing this, but just a little yellow, and it looks like a star, and you can add a little more yellow, you know, just little dots down on the tree like you did with the red. But that's just some ideas for decorating them, and like I said, the more frosting you get on them, the more the kids like them anyway. And this honestly is the absolute best Christmas cookie recipe in the world. We want to wish you a very Merry Christmas from the Hillbilly Kitchen, and we are truly grateful for everybody who has joined us this year. Don't forget to click like and subscribe before you leave. And until next time, remember to put God first.